Shirma, who is speaking on behalf of his colleagues in giving his paper. And his paper is Members' Participation on Cooperative Performance, Evidence from Agricultural Marketing Cooperative Societies in Rombo District in Tanzania. And just before you joined us, I was having a bit of a chat with Victor, and I had some of the best years of my life working on behalf of the Cooperative College in the UK with colleagues, including Professor Chambo at the Cooperative College in Tanzania. So I know what an incredible cooperative society Tanzania is. So Victor, welcome, and thank you so much for your paper.
Okay, thank you very much for a wonderful conference. I'm glad to be here. Now, I'll start sharing my PPT. Yeah, my paper is concerned about the member perceptions on cooperative performance, evidence from the primary agricultural marketing cooperative societies in Rombo District, Tanzania. I am presenting on behalf of my colleagues, who is Henry Chalu in the accounting department, University of Dar es Salaam. But also we have Benson Diege. He is a registrar of cooperatives, Tanzania Cooperative Development Commission, TCDC. And myself is Victor Shirma. It has been that in cooperative sectors, we have experienced that the cooperative has been one of the institutions that have spread all over the world, playing a big role on alleviating poverty. It has been used as a very instrumental tool to make sure that the poverty alleviation is dealt with in this, especially in poor countries. But also we know these cooperatives have got unique features which differentiates them from other firms. One of them is we say that they play both economic and social roles. But also members have both ownership role and transactional relationship with their cooperatives, which is contrary to other firms. And therefore they are the owners, but there is what is called the member control. But also, when now it becomes the issue of making decisions, any decision has an impact on the overall members' interest, because we can see that we have this party of member as owner, as also the controller of the cooperative. Therefore, any decision should be will have an impact on the overall members' interest. And if that is the case, when it comes to the issue of measuring performance, you have to consider the uniqueness of these cooperatives. That is very important. Nokovic says that the strength of cooperative business is in achieving social aims with economic means and balancing the same. Therefore, we have to make sure that when we evaluate the performance of these cooperatives, we have to balance the same. Now, various studies on cooperative performance have been focusing on the financial accounting and leave about the other side of non-financial. Now, they don't consider the members' views as the owners and the users of cooperative service as also, and also the non-financial aspect. They just take the financial ratios and then they report on the financial performance and leaving apart the side of the the non-financial, and also the views of the members who are the owners as well as the control of the cooperatives. They make decisions on their cooperative. Now, in order to capture all these dimensions, an inclusive approach such as balanced scorecard is needed. This card was trying to address the measurements in primary campus. But it was guided by the following theory. The first one was the dual motive theory, which says that social and personal gain and the social gain are inseparable. Now, therefore, it was adopted because economic and the social aspects are inseparable when it comes to the issue of cooperative. But also, in order to balance between the financial and non-financial, the balanced scorecard model was developed by Kaplan and Norton. It has only 4 perspectives, but it gives the room to add another perspective depending on the. Therefore, it was suitable for this style to be adopted. And then we have the objective, which was to assess the performance of the primary campus, but with 2 hypotheses. The first one was there is no difference in performance between financial and non-financial performance. And the second one was non-financial performance does not affect the financial performance of the primary campus. We know that the assumption in a balanced scorecard model is the non-financial aspects drive the financial, the drivers for the financial performance sometimes. Therefore, that's why I tested this hypothesis. The methodology for this tag, the area was Rombo District in Kilimanjaro, Tanzania. And the Rombo was selected because by the time which I was carrying this start, 2018, Rombo had all the active, all the AMCOs in Rombo was active were active compared to other districts. The sample size was 334, and I used the closed-ended questionnaire, which was administered by the researcher. Now, how to measure perception? Perception was measured by 5-point Likert scale. And at the end, in the analysis, descriptive statistics was used, where the results were obtained from the mini scores. And then we used the t-test to test the mean difference between the performance aspects, whether the performance were different, were significant different, statistical different, significant different. But we have multiple regression, which was used to test the influence of non-financial to financial perspective. Now, these were the performance aspects and their performance metrics. I constructed the sentences which covered the 5 aspects here: social aspect, learning aspects, internal business, member aspect, and financial. These are the sentences which I used in Likert scale to measure the performance, to see the perception of the members. And then I come up with the results from the descriptive statistics. Now, when you see the descriptive statistics, you can see that in a non-financial performance compared to the financial performance, members perceived that the non-financial performance was good compared to financial performance. But you remember, we have non-financial performance. We have some aspects which are within non-financial performance, which is social, learning, internal, and the member performance. Now, in the non-financial performance aspects also, we see the social performance aspect was doing better than the others. The learning performance, internal business process, and member performance, they are more or less the same. They are within a certain range, which is more or less the same. But what is more important here is to see that members are more are perceiving the performance of the AMCOs doing better in the non-financial performance than the financial performance. According to the criteria for the performance, for non-performance, we can say that it is above average, but for financial performance is average. But we went further to see whether there is statistical mean difference between this performance. Therefore, we use the paired sample test, and then we went further to see the contribution of non-financial performance aspect on financial performance, because we have agreed that the non-financial are the drivers for financial. Therefore, as you can see from the table here, the learning performance contribute much more in the financial performance than the other, followed by the internal business and the member performance. Now, the summary of the findings, we said that members perceive the primary AMCOs to have low performance in financial aspects than in the financial aspect. You can see that it was average in financial performance, while it was above average in the non-financial performance. But also we say social aspects in the leading is the leading aspect which members perceive to be performing than other aspects. Maybe this can tell something, because there are some people who are saying why members are still in the cooperatives while they are not performing good in finance. Here we can have something that it means members are getting other benefits apart from the financial. There are benefits which they are getting from the in being in cooperatives, which are not financial but non-financial, and they are happy with them. Now we say non-financial performance has a large contribution to the financial performance. When we ran the regression analysis, we have seen that the non-financial has contributed to the financial performance. But learning and growth was much contributing to the financial performance. Why maybe this is seen to be contributing much in the financial performance? The structure of our AMCOs, especially the one which we studied, most of the members, most of the leaders and the staff are also the members. Now, when they get training, they get education, it means that they are going to contribute much on how to run the AMCOs. Therefore, I think that's why we have seen that learning and growth was much contributed to the financial performance and the other aspects. And then, this is the quote from the interview, saying that not only we are benefiting from the price of our coffee, but sometimes we are getting new ideas when we meet in groups. Sometimes we are called for training in various areas, and therefore you find some new knowledge and learning on how to face new challenges which are in our area. Some of our members were even afraid to participate in meetings or any elections, but currently they have been empowered through our cooperative, and the others now, they think of even to extend their leadership to the community. Now, the conclusion and the recommendation. The study concludes that primary AMCOs are perceiving to perform better in non-financial aspects than in the financial aspects, indicating that members are have much benefit apart from the financial benefits. It is recommended that primary AMCOs put more efforts by using the strength they have in the non-financial aspects to influence the financial aspect. You have seen the non-financial aspect is doing well, but the financial aspect is not doing well. Now they have to use the strength they have in the non-financial to increase the performance in the financial aspect. Now this should be done without impairing the non-financial aspects so as to balance the situation, and hence to comply with the duality nature of the cooperative as socio-economic. But, therefore, they can do this through using the knowledge they have in ensuring they get good price, for example, utilizing the assets they have properly to generate income, increase production so as to increase the sales volume. But if the findings also show that there is positive relationship among non-financial performance aspects. Now, what does it tell? It tells us that there is no trade-off between the two, non-financial and the financial. But it also social performance aspects has reported the negative contribution to the financial. If you go to the table, there is that indication. Now, there is that result. This now, it means sometimes they can use a lot of fund in the social aspects now, which will affect the financial aspect. Now, what do we recommend is that both economic and social performance should not be separated in decision making, as emphasized by the dual motive. And then the study is recommending the modified balance scorecard to be used in assessing the primary AMCO's performance. Thank you for listening. That is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Victor. That was a really, really rich conversation. Thank you. And so interesting that actually what you found in your research, which of course is what right back to the Rochdale pioneers, that you do the learning to learn how to build a great cooperative, but also how to be a cooperator, so acquiring those other great skills like the knowledge and the new ways to think about leadership and participation. So that's really, really interesting. Thank you. I'm just wondering whether anybody has any questions. Perhaps Victor, if you could kindly not stop sharing your screen, and then I can see everybody's hands to see if anybody has any questions that they'd like to put to Victor. You can use the little thing in your chat or put your hand up. Well, maybe we'll return to some questions later when we gather them more together. But that was a really interesting talk, Victor. And can you say thank you to you? Oh, sorry, is there a hand up?
Well, sorry, I had one, but as a co-host, I can't raise my hand. So I've just discovered that. As I was looking around for, I'm in charge of the technology and was looking around for the button. It's going well. That was a really excellent talk, and I think. Have you had opportunity to see whether those conclusions differ in different types of cooperative? I know you've been looking at a particular subset, but from your own knowledge, would you expect broadly similar conclusions in different types of cooperative?
Can you answer?
Thank you, Victor. Yeah, did you hear that properly?
Yeah, if I get him properly, saying that will the conclusion differ in various cooperatives? I think that was the question. Now I can answer like this. You know, the cooperative structure in Tanzania, they vary. There are those cooperatives which are depending much on the union, the umbrella, and there are the cooperatives which have decided to do their business, the business by their own. Now the conclusion will switch much on those which are doing, which are depending on the union to do for them, that they are just collecting the produce and then the marketing is done by the union. That conclusion will not suit for them. It will suit for those which are doing business by their own. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. That's really interesting. There's that transferability. Thank you. Nick, would you like to have another question? You'd like to ask Victor a question before we move on to the next speaker?
Thank you, Cilla. Hi, Victor. Greetings. I was in Tanzania this time last year in Dar es Salaam, and I had a fabulous time. It's a great place and a great country. So greetings. But my question is about the nature. You say there's a relationship between the non-financial benefits of cooperation and the financial aspects. Did you have any ideas or thoughts about how the non-financial, the social, the communitarian, the training, the skills development can actually impact and improve the financial performance?
The skills we are talking about, they are in the learning aspect. Therefore, all of them are impacting on the performance, on the financial performance. Because as you can see, the non-financial aspects, I have included the social, I have included the learning and the internal business, as well as the member aspect. Therefore, the issue of skills are in the learning aspect. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed, Victor, and thanks for that response. Thank you very much indeed for a really great contribution. And I think probably UKSCS colleagues would be grateful if we can share your slides out. I think, Ian, that's the plan, isn't it? Thank you very much indeed. Our next contributor is Muniba Rehman. And you're there, I can see you on screen. And I'm wondering if I can ask you to unmute yourself, please. And we're very much looking forward to hearing your contribution. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. This is Muniba Rehman. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. I am from Pakistan. I am serving in the Cooperative Department of the Government of Punjab, Pakistan. May I ask if you are hearing me clearly? Okay. So may I start, please?
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you. We can hear you very clearly.
Okay, okay. I am going to start my sharing my screen. Sir, before proceeding to my paper, to my presentation, first of all, let me thank you, UK Cooperative Society, for giving me this opportunity. And this is really honor for me as I am presenting my paper very first time at International Forum. Before proceeding, allow me to introduce myself. I am Munibur Rahman. I am serving as a Circle Registrar of Cooperatives as a district head at the district Narowal, which is also our study site. The study I have conducted is based on a government intervention targeting the cooperative institutions, which is interest-free tractor scheme for the Barani areas. And I have investigated the impact of this intervention on the well-being of farmer members of the cooperatives. So this is the sequence of my presentation, starting from the introduction, by touching upon the cooperative profile of the study site, going through the interest-free tractor scheme, telling you about the impact, well-being of the members, and I will conclude on findings and the recommendations. Need not to say to everyone present here that everyone is well aware of what a cooperative is. However, just as a reminding note, we will discuss the introduction of cooperatives, which is a proven collective action initiative of the self-help, mutual aid, aiming at the uplifting of its followers. It ensures food security. It has the aim of empowering women. It provides affordable finances to its members. It also creates decent jobs, and it focuses on social strength and decision making. And above all, it efficaciously addresses the common economic, social, and cultural needs and the aspirations of the members. So here is the brief profile of my study site, as is depicted in my paper. The study was conducted in district Narowal, Punjab, where all the cooperatives are agricultural cooperatives. The table below describes the number of villages and number of cooperative societies in the study site. There are 1,207 villages, out of which 350 villages have cooperative societies, and the number of cooperative societies in those villages is 414 with 15,083 membership, having share capital of 1.669 millions and working capital of 13 millions. As I have narrated that all the cooperative societies are agricultural cooperatives. They are engaged in agricultural activities. They get loan from the cooperative bank to redistribute it among its members so that they may fulfill their agricultural input needs. So as of 1st January 2020, the total crop loaning was amounting to rupees 118 million to the 76 societies, and 299 members were benefited from these loans. Now, come to the project, the intervention. This was government intervention to facilitate the agricultural cooperatives in a specific area, which is called Barani areas. Initially, this project was started in 1979, and there was a gap from 2000 to 2017, and it was revived in 2017-18 with an allocation of amount of rupees 70 millions. The main object of this intervention was to strengthening the cooperative institutions of the Barani areas. So for the information of my listeners, Barani areas are those areas where agricultural irrigation is conducted through rainwater. So these are specific areas, they have special incentives, and there are special relaxation and conditions by the government for the farmers and the cooperative societies in those Barani areas. These are 13 notified districts of the province of Punjab, and as I have discussed, as I have told, the irrigation is conducted through rainwater. District Narowal, my study site, is one of the Barani area. The main feature of this project is the participatory contribution of the members, the applicants. The applicant have to contribute 20% of the total cost of the tractor. Remaining 80% amount was provided to them under the project, and this amount was without any markup. So in the first phase, till June 30th June 2029, 98 tractors were distributed to the cooperative members of 13 districts. 15 were allocated in our study site. There was a strict discipline for the scrutiny of the applicants, and 11 out of 15 tractors were delivered and 4 applicants were disqualified during the scrutiny. This initiative is contributory towards the revival of cooperative movement, resource creation, and uplifting of the beneficiary members. The tractors provided under the project are being used for cultivation and carriage transport. This project is very significant because the cooperatives in entire province are almost stagnant. They are doing a uni action, that is one action, taking loan from the cooperative bank and distributing among the members, and on the reaping of the crop, they pay back the loan. And there is no other activity, there is no innovation in their activities of the cooperative. So that's why this project is significant, as it is aimed to get the cooperative societies out of the stagnant position. We may say that this is an attempt to lead the cooperatives to act out of the box. So now come to the study in hand. This is the first ever initiative aimed at mapping the impact on the economic betterment of the members and strengthening of the cooperative institution. Before this, no such study was conducted. Epistemologically, this is a qualitative in nature. Focus group technique was used for investigation. For the purpose, we formed 2 FGs, 2 focus groups. FG1, which was consisting of 9 members who are the field staff of cooperatives at the study site, and FG2, which was comprising of 9 members of the cooperative societies, 5 out of which were the beneficiary of the interest-free tractor scheme from the district Narwal. So each session was conducted having the duration of 2.5 hours, and study frame was adapted from the work of Musa Hassan Ahmad and Hewot McNaughton Mesfin 2017. We had cooperative membership as independent variable and well-being as a dependent variable. The study particularly addresses the role of government intervention for the cooperative movement, strengthening the present, and it presents the following propositions. So these were the propositions which were aimed during the investigation. The first proposition was that cooperatives have potential to address economic issues at individual as well as collective level. In Pakistan, especially at the study site, cooperatives are still far behind from self-sufficiency and require external intervention to sustain and invite attention of the masses. Government external interventions motivate the adherence of members to the cooperatives. Lack of understanding of the cooperative system is leading towards its dormancy. External interventions surely create awareness on the cooperatives. Cooperatives may bring prosperity, well-being, in alternative words, to the individual members through collective action. Individual well-being will bring collective well-being. Inefficiency of the cooperative field staff, the regulatory regime, the lack of coordination between societies and the field staff, and improper government policies with indifferent priorities are some major causes leading to failure of cooperative societies in meeting their objectives, thus remain deficient in getting desired results of the members' well-being. So these were the propositions which were discussed, which were examined in our study. So well-being, that is a complex topic, complex concept. So we borrowed the definitions as well as got help from AIHW's framework on welfare and well-being, which defines determinants of well-being, which defines contextual factors as well as welfare service and sports. So for example, well-being is housing quality, living conditions, housing status, employment status, safety, security, educational attainment, health, and functioning. So if these things are being yielded out of this intervention, we may say that members are having well-beingness. So this diagram also depicts the different aspects of well-being: good housing, efficient family life, social participation, leisure, health facilities, security, environment, financial security, learning, work. So if these all are available, these are the determinants of well-being. This has also been retrieved from AIHW's framework. So out of the discussions at the focus groups, we got some emerging themes which have been described separately from the focus group 1 and focus group 2. Focus group 1, which was comprising of the regulatory regime, that is the regular employee of the cooperatives department. So the major theme which we yielded was the sustainability of cooperatives. If cooperatives do not sustain, the cooperative department has no future. They all have unanimous opinion about that. And we also got a view that the triggers of stagnation will lead to the failures. What are the triggers of stagnation? No innovation, no new schemes, no participation by the members, no coordination between members, managing committees, boards, and the regulatory regime. This will lead stagnation. This will lead cooperative societies towards the stagnation. And not only the focus group discuss the reasons, but also discuss the possible solutions. So one of the important solution which they have discussed was the government intervention or external intervention. And the second solution was the developing members' interest, how that can be developed by providing incentives, by developing their loyalty with their cooperatives. And not only members, when members are having the interest, when we find some society functional, definitely it will attract general members to be part of cooperatives. And there are sub-themes also: dynamics of cooperatives, their composition, their benefits and advantages, disadvantages, leadership, administration. And we got a unanimous opinion that the strengthening of cooperatives will lead towards the strengthening of democracy. And as far as focus group 2 is concerned, since that was comprising of the members, their viewpoint was a bit different from the viewpoint of the focus group 1 participants. They discussed problems and hurdles in the smooth functioning of their cooperatives. We found that members of the cooperative societies are resource poor. Most of the societies are primary societies, having membership of the poor farmers. In majority of the cooperative societies, the membership is restricted to 30 to 50 members. There is least participation by the members in the cooperative activities like annual general meetings, in audits, in performing different duties, and lack of coordination between the cooperative societies and the department, that is the cooperative department. This coordination is very much necessary for the capacity building of the cooperatives. The members of focus group 2 were also of the view that government intervention is necessary because these societies are resource poor. So government intervention will act as injecting a new blood among them. Motivation to join cooperatives is also necessary, and there should be a financial security by the government for the working of cooperative institutions. Based on the themes emerged out of our discussions, we find that this study was challenging and helpful in framing of the policy for cooperative movement, so that on the basis of the findings we derive out of the study, new initiative may be introduced. We find that cooperatives enable the people to be self-reliant. They are least dependent through cooperatives on the government, and they will be able to create their own resources. The project in hand energize the cooperatives by implementing operational activities like holding of AGMs, conducting of financial audit, accountability of the managing committees, and also induced trust on the organization resultantly. Also did capacity building of the regulatory regime and the cooperative societies, because there was certain criteria to be applicant for the project in hand. So that's why the project regime as well as the cooperative societies work shoulder to shoulder in capacity building and generating activities for the cooperative societies. Cooperative societies, we find that cooperative membership is guaranteed solution to many of the problems faced by the farmer community through a collective action, as is evident from the implementation of this interest-free tractor scheme, which provided financial security, employment, enrichment in income, enhancement and productivity. Another aspect which transpired out of the group talks was the members are not limited to availing benefits of this scheme, but they keenly took part in other organizational activities, as I have earlier discussed, and contribute towards the strengthening of their cooperatives. Implementation of the project caused better agriculture, resulting in better income, which eventually lead to the better living, that is well-being of the members. This intervention brings resilience in the cooperative institutions. How? Because the cooperative institutions were dormant, a bit dormant or stagnant, because they were doing only single activity, taking loan from the cooperative bank, distributing it among their members and making the recovery and paying back to the cooperative bank again. But this way, they will be able to compare with the other players in the field. So they are going to be a good business model, a resilient business model for the other players in the field. So at the end, what we recommend or what we conclude is subsidiary schemes like the one studied through this investigation brings financial and social health at institutional and individual level. The government interventions like the one studied has helped achieving self-reliance. Therefore, it is recommended that cooperatives must organize as per modern day needs, and interventions be kept introduced on participatory basis to ensure food security, institutional strengthening and economic betterment through cooperatives, besides strict monitoring and evaluation for the proper implementation of such interventions. This is all I have to present, and thank you very much for patiently listening to me. Any question from my participants, I will be glad to answer.
Thank you so much, Munib. That was absolutely fantastic. I wonder if you could kindly stop sharing your screen so that we could see everybody who's in the room.
Okay.
That would be great. That was absolutely fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Actually, let me close my screen.
That would be good. Perfect.
Yeah,
there we are. Now we can see you. Now we can see everyone. That was really interesting. Thank you. I'm going to ask if people have some questions, but if I may just begin by asking one thing. I was delighted to see you use a qualitative methodology to talk to members of the society in particular about their feelings about the impact, and how what particular things did they say in relation to how they felt their well-being had been improved, because you had that whole load of indicators So I'd just be interested, what when they were reflecting on what had improved for them, what were they saying? What was their answer to that?
Okay. Well, they had a very positive response because the same question was put to them during the discussions, and they are unanimously of the view, because they are resource poor, they were unable to bear the cost of tractor at their own. So, and because when they are unable to bear the expenditures, they were unable to bear the other expenses on their family, on their better cultivation or agriculture. So this scheme helped them a lot, because the credit was interest free, and it has to be paid back in 5 years. So this also help in creating resources for them, because when they use it in their cultivation, in their agriculture, definitely the result is the better yield from their agriculture. Better yield from the agriculture means the better income and better resources, better money, better amount to spend on their schooling of their children, on the betterment of their family, on improving their family life.
That's interesting. So they were obviously able to make that connection. It's just there are so many indicators in that framework. So that's really interesting. Thank you. I'm wondering if anyone else has a question that they would like to ask. We've got sort of a couple of minutes before we move on to the next speaker. Anyone else? Can't see any hands. But I have noticed that Nick Matthews has put in the chat, without putting you on the spot, Nick, the idea of using well-being to try and actually unpack what is, at first glance, a very economic context, and widening that out. And Janette says she agrees. Good thumbs up. Any other question? Okay, well, thank you. I really enjoyed that. And again, we'd love to have those slides. And I know that's the plan, as I said earlier. So thank you very much, Manib. It was really, really interesting and just fantastic work. I mean, just trying to develop that cooperative identity as well as that economic stuff that's what makes co-op sustainable, isn't it? So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody here. Thank you very much.
But very good for your first paper. Perfect. Thank you. Right, everybody, we're moving on to our third presentation of the morning, and it's Artur Rykalin, and I am just trying to find you on screen, and would ask you to unmute yourself, Artur. Hello.
Just a moment. Good day.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are we able to see you?
Yeah, but some Zoom don't want to show my video. Sorry, I don't know what is. He stopped this conference. Okay.
Don't worry. Perfect. We're going to see your screen, I think.
Yes.
This is very good. So we've been to Tanzania, we've been to Pakistan, and we're looking at cooperatives in Russia. So this is very exciting international and shows the global nature of co-op. So Artur, welcome. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for joining the conference. So our article analyzes the possibilities of marketing organic cooperatives in Russia. So we consider the challenges of state policy in the field of agricultural cooperation, restraining its sustainable development. Based on world and Russian cases, recommendations are offered for the accelerated development of organic farmers cooperatives. We argue that changing global agriculture requires the development of new, more modern forms of both agricultural cooperatives and policy measures. The examples and conclusions presented in this work may be useful not only for Russia, but also for other post-Soviet countries in which agricultural cooperation and organic agriculture are at lower level of development. So, organic agriculture could be a good prospect for numerous small forms of farming in Russia and other Soviet countries, which are in serious competition with large federal and global agricultural holdings. The cooperation of organic farmers would both strengthen their bargaining power in the market without loss of independence and efficiency, and also make organic products more accessible to consumers who are not yet completely familiar with them and who can't afford them because of the stagnation of real disposable incomes. So cooperatives and Agricoop, especially agri-cooperatives, could be a good tool for growing organic farmers movement in Russia and the whole industry. The purpose of our study is to identify policy measures that for the accelerated and sustainable development of cooperatives in Russia. Despite the fact that in advanced foreign countries, cooperatives and similar producer organizations are actively used to include many farmers in global food systems, in Russia these farmers still do not occupy a stable position in the food supply chains. The formation of markets for organic products both opens up new competitive prospects for farmers and possesses additional challenges for the development of new technologies, certification, and the search for new markets. On the next slide, you could see the rapid growth of enterprises with one founder. It's some characteristic of anti-cooperative environment in Russia. So you know that earlier in the Soviet economy, it was a lot of joint some kind of kolkhozes, joint farms, and now you could see the rapid growth of decollectivization. Yes, you could see the shares of one founder agrarian enterprises in different measures like the whole number of enterprises, the number of employed, etc., etc. Modern measures that support agricultural cooperatives are no longer focused on market mechanisms and entrepreneurial efficiency, but instead on subsidies. The cooperative form today has become the goal, not the means. The process of creating cooperatives dominates the goal of farmers' sustainable, independent, and market-effective work. Rural cooperation is also hindered by the general situation in agriculture and rural areas. Many factors are leaching resources and people from rural areas: accelerated urbanization, price disparity, a negative image of rural life, which includes lower incomes and less robust social infrastructure. So the research was made on the cases of hundreds of different co-ops in Russia and other countries, collected for 10 years of my field trips. The best practices could be useful not only for co-ops and farmers and not only to Russia. So we make some kind of induction, yes, collecting different cases, then collecting them in bundles and making conclusions for post-Soviet countries. So here you could see an example of our marketing cooperative in Russia, where I worked for 10 years as a head of council. So for 10 years, we haven't any grant subsidies from any NGOs or the government. So we are fully oriented for self-funding. We work at urban areas. We sell long-life organic products. So we have 40 active suppliers each month, and the whole number of workers is 24 maximum. We distribute the products of our farmers during different channels: wholesale, retail, offline and online, For example, now 200 buyers we have each day. So what about functional form of our cooperative? It's multifunctional because we make not only sales for our farmers that couldn't do it in big cities, but we also make marketing for them, and we like an investment bank for them, helping them with funds the whole year. So we provide also learning and training by doing for them, because with the help of our marketing cooperative, they have actual feedback each day about their products, about the quality, about way of some image of farmers. Yes, the scheme is some combination of rural and urban cooperation, because part of our assets and activities are in rural area and in urban also. We incorporate some kinds of Zalavi, German definition of community-supported agriculture schemes of direct deliveries. And one more function of our cooperative is a small business incubator, because for 10 years we were like a birthplace for 10 different SMEs in organic and farming industries. Some of them work specialize on fairs, some made their own online shops, some started their organic farms. So it's also our impact as a cooperative. So here you could see we promote our farmers in different ways. For small farmers, for example, you could see on the Vladimir, he's a beekeeper. It will be unbelievable for him to make an exhibition on Red Square, on the best fair, the biggest fairs in Moscow. Yes, but with the help of cooperative, it is possible for him. And you can see here is different formats in different regions. We try to make different channels of marketing. Okay, modern measures that support agriculture. So it's a dual purpose of our research, because we made it not only for enterprises, for co-ops, for farmers, but also for government to make their co-op policy more effective. Yes, and we also analyze 2 points. So modern measures that support agricultural cooperatives are no longer focused on market mechanisms and entrepreneurial efficiency, but instead on subsidies. The cooperative form today has become the goal. Yes, as I said, not the means. The process of creating cooperatives dominates the goal of the farmer's sustainable independent work. Rural cooperation is you could see that we've mapped some policy options that we prepare for our government. Yes, because it's difficult in restriction of resources to run all the policy options. Is always some kind of choice. The key to the successful development of organic farmers is the reorientation of state support from subsidies and regulation, so-called tight policy, to creating incentives and opportunities for independent market-oriented development, soft policy. The main policy recommendations that emerged from this study relate to the educational, institutional, economic, and information spheres. Cooperative education, along with regulation, taxation, and incentives, should be such that farmers themselves are interested in starting and developing cooperatives. Not so that they are unpromising and uncompetitive and constantly need to be artificially compensated through government support and government grants. While cooperatives are difficult to manage, it is complicated to follow formal procedures. while starting them significantly boosts the amount paid in taxes and increases the risks of various regulatory inspections. While there are frequent cases of hostile bankruptcy and trade attacks on small businesses with subsidiary liability. And while there is a shortage of methodology for training cooperative personnel, then the probability of qualitative improvement in the situation with sustainable agricultural cooperatives will remain very low. The experience of leading agricultural countries shows that the sound functioning of the agricultural cooperative system could have a positive effect for many stakeholders of the entire organic food supply chain. So for consumers, you could see for processors, for retailers, agri-holdings, and organic farmers and their families. The governmental and non-profit sectors could also optimize their investments and donations by delegating a number of development and support functions to cooperative structures. So it's the main map of our research and our investigation. So if you have any questions, I'd like to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a really out of the 3 presentations so far, including yours, we're seeing really interesting examples of interventions which are trying to promote self-help and self-responsibility, aren't we? So that was a really interesting sort of counterposition of that, and absolutely fascinating. Could I ask you to just stop sharing your screen, please, and then we can see everybody and see the questions that people may have. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That was really fascinating, actually. We're trying to start a cooperative. I'll come to you, Nick. We're trying to start or explore starting a cooperative university in the UK, certainly a cooperative higher education based around that. And the idea of a Russian university of cooperatives, I want to come visit. So it's fascinating. Thank you. Nick, you have a question.
One observation and one quick question. The observation is to have spent 10 years traveling around all these farms doing this work must have been an absolute delight. I think I envy you the opportunity to be able to do that. I appreciate that the circumstances sometimes might not have been fun, but it would have been really fascinating to have travelled in that space in this time. So thank you very much for sharing this research with us. My particular technical question is the question of double taxation. And I wonder if you could just elaborate a little bit on how that phenomenon affects the growth and development of these agricultural cooperatives. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your question. I haven't fully understand it. I understand that it's about taxation of agricultural cooperatives. Yes, as I really said. So there are several key points. First of all, cooperative legal form in Russia is an exclusion for taxation, for tax policy, for courts, for consultants. So people don't understand how it works, and because of this, we have a lot of problems from taxation authorities. They know what cooperatives. I don't know about this legal form, and they think they analyze that some schemes of cooperative managing is some kind of tax crime. Yes, they think, oh, guys, you don't work as limited liabilities organizations. Yes, you do some kind of tax avoidance, and it's a lot of problems with this. Even we have in Russia so-called Center Soyuz. It's the umbrella of the biggest union of cooperatives, and they made an experiment to run perfect cooperative. They wanted to start perfect cooperative for education purposes, and they registered this cooperative for 4 months, because in the city where they are located, tax authorities don't know about this legal form. So the manager in the tax authorities, I haven't registered cooperative, so sorry. So and for 4 months they couldn't do it. Yes. So we have I have seen a lot of questions and interesting presentation these conferences about relations in cooperatives, about human questions. Yes, and we have now very bad ecosystem, very bad environment, the whole, to run cooperatives, because it's an exclusion. It's an exclusion now, and we have a lot of problems. For example, problems with double taxation. Yes, when for example, a cooperative make a profit, some plus of incomes via expenses, and then if it distributes its profit for farmers, for members, it could be double taxation of these incomes. Yes, the second problem of this. And thirdly, we have millions of SMEs in rural areas, millions of different forms, individual entrepreneurs, private households, and mostly of them are in the shadow zone for taxation. Yes, because they couldn't afford taxes, they only survive. And if, for example, 6 farmers unite in Agricooperative, so it could be bad for them, because they are now become in a white economy, and they 40 regulative authorities will come to them to see how are you working. Yes, I feel all the 700 regulation in different ways. So it's very, so we fight more not with market, we fight not more with each other in cooperatives, yes, about cooperative, but with legal environment, with that is not sound, not friendly for such a rare legal form. Yes, because after Soviet Union crash, it was a bad image to cooperatives, to cooperation, to collective form of making business, making some projects. And now we fight to rebranding. That is, it's not bad. It could be effective. It could be profitable for all the stakeholders, especially in rural areas. Sorry if I'm not correctly understand your questions, but I try.
No, no, Victor, you answered it. You understood it, and thank you very much for putting it in the context of the legal framework, because that helps to explain it for me. Thank you very, very much indeed. I really, really enjoyed your paper, and all the very best of luck with your recommendations going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And,
sorry, Artur.
And about the first part, about 10 years, how I just several seconds how we began. I began. So I have a teacher, and he was a senior. He was an influencer of cooperatives in Russia. And after I heard his lecture in Moscow State University, I changed my orientation from macroeconomics, mathematical methods in economics, to agricultural cooperatives. And I went to PhD for agricultural cooperatives. And when I started to make a theory, I understand that it was a great lack of practice. So I understood that I should learn by doing, and we created our own cooperative to run. And then began the history. For example, last year I lived 1/4 of year in Germany in different rural cooperatives in different communities. Yes, to analyze their experience, especially organic farms, biodynamic farms. We translate a lot of books from English to Russia to to influence this in Russian language because we have a lag. So we make conferences, we make presentation in eco villages Russian. So we try to make an ecosystem of this movement and to be an influence and analyze all the best practices across the world and give it to Russia to say, so guys, it's a good option to us, not to you, to us. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Artur. Thank you. That's a great answer. I have one more question before we move on to our final speaker, if that's okay with you, Artur. Manib, would you like to ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Artur,
thank you.
Artur, thank you very much. Very comprehensive work you have presented. My question is concerned with the marketing bridge between producers and the marketing shops. So how cooperatives deal with this situation? Because production is not a matter problem. Problem is marketing of those produces. So how you develop, how the cooperatives in Russia develop that marketing bridge?
Did you get that, Artur? Did you hear that okay?
Could you in chat just two words about what is your question? It was very large and distortions in the voice.
I can read it.
Okay, I write.
What Munib wrote was he thanked you for the work, but he asked you that could you say something about how the work has been helpful. I think this is right, Munib, in strengthening the bridge between the producer and the market. So, you know,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. How we meet producer side and consumer side. How we help the marketing. Okay. Yes. We are some kind of direct delivery. We began in Moscow. And we unite consumers. Firstly, we were as consumer cooperative. We unite consumers. They want to buy fresh organic products for affordable prices. And then we started to find organic farmers and unite them. We have some big storage in Moscow, and from all the Russia. We make supplies from direct farmers to our storage, and then via online and offline shops, we distribute it to different buyers. Some of them are cooperative members, some of them are not cooperative members. So, and also we participate in different fairs, as you've seen on my presentations. And that's why we are suppliers for small shops, organic shops, with our products of our farmers. So the sales strategy is very diverse because we're some kind of small enterprise and we try to use different channels and to be convenient to our consumers, because of course the level of competition in food retail is enormous. Yes, and especially now when we see a lot of Amazon models of delivery and etc. etc. Yes, so globalization and competition with agri holdings is very difficult, but we do our best, especially with the help of values. So values help us for values are our loyalty programs of consumers. Some of them are for 6-7 years with us, and they recommend us and they help us, and so these make us sustainable. Sorry if I not fully understand and answer your question. You could see on my contacts, and later you could ask me for our research, for our presentation, for our cases. A lot of, so who is interested, I could fully get your information and communicate later.
No, thank you very much, Artur. You well explained. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for another really fascinating talk, and it's just great to see so much rich research going on. And you know, looking at cooperatives in different ways in the contemporary world, and seeing how they continue to be absolutely imperative in terms of thinking about a different economic model. But it's been lovely and really interesting as well to just see the people in these as well, how it's impacting on the cooperators' life and the society's life. So thank you so much, Artur, that was really interesting. Unless there are any other questions, I'd like to move on to Janette. Janette, you're a little bit early, Janette. If you're happy to go now, or we'd like to take a 5-minute comfort break.
Okay, to crash on, because we might lose if we lose momentum if we have a break.
That's great. So I have absolutely great pleasure. So, you know, Tanzania, Pakistan, Russia, Sheffield. Now, come on. Sheffield is in the north of England, for those of you who don't know. I'm really delighted to see you, Janette. Thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to your paper. So the floor's yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I share my screen, just want to say, if my voice sounds a bit funny, I was starting to suck on my sweet. I've been on my sick bed for 4 days, so just a bad cold, I think. Not COVID. So, so bear with me if I start coughing or something. And I'm sorry I've not been able to join as much of the conference as I want. I'm going to try and share my screen now. And if Cilla, if you can confirm that you just see in the presentation, not my notes and things when I do it.
I will. I'll let you know. 3
screens. It's like Starship Enterprise.
Oh, no. But look at me, look behind me. I've got 2 behind me.
Can you just see my...
I can see a beautiful picture of somebody diving into something. Yes, thank you. Nothing else.
Oh, yeah. Right. Okay. I've lost my meeting controls. It's this thing. Well, bear with me. It's this thing with 3 screens. You should see me trying to teach like this. Right. So do shout, Cilla, if anything goes a bit wrong.
I will do.
So if anybody wants to give me feedback on today, I'm trying to work on something. So I've done a few of these kind of beasts, and I'm trying to work on my timing. I'm trying to work on having a bit of a story, not trying to do my whole study at once. And I'm also trying to combine research methods with empirical findings. So if you have any feedback on that, I was willing to learn. So today's presentation is about my research project. I'm nearing the end of my PhD. I've done the findings, analysis, and I'm currently writing up. It's quite interesting, this talk coming now, because it links to some of the previous talks. Some of the previous talks, Manib's talking about individual level research and well-being, and Arthur's talking about the food network and supplying organic food. A lot of the participants today actually work in that organic food supply network in the small and medium enterprises of worker co-ops. Not just Sheffield, it's also other places in the UK, but I haven't got time to go into the detail of where they're all from. So as you see in the title, this title of the talk, rather cheekily, I stole this from my husband. Perhaps I should cite him. Sometimes when I show surprise at how people, maybe students or people at work, don't act in the way I expect them to, or say what I expect them to, and they do unusual things, my husband rather cheekily says, it's almost like they're individuals. And so this talk today very much thinks about and treats the participants of the study as individual human beings. And in some ways it speaks to some of the critiques of worker co-ops, some of the critiques out there that suggest that somehow working in a worker co-op in a communitarian environment diminishes individuals. But I think you'll see that the individuals in the worker co-ops I studied are very much individual human beings. And they're diving in. I will come back to that later. There is a metaphor about diving, so keep in mind that. Now I've got 3 screens to try and get over here. Wait, number 2. So I think some of you will be aware of Restis work, suggesting that people should be at the centre of the economy for meaningful work and to move beyond some of the downsides of a more capitalist-based economy. Many of you, I hope, are familiar with this work. And it's something co-ops, and in particular worker co-ops, are quite familiar with, trying to humanise the economy. People, whether they be workers in worker co-ops or the members or wider society, being at the centre of the business model of cooperatives. But in terms of research, what might this look like? So I want to address that. So the kind of research that would humanise people, participants in research. I'm drawing here on Freire, cited in Blackburn, an interesting book I only found yesterday, a book about research called Humanising Research by Django Paris and Maisha Wynne. There's a picture of it there. They are particularly talking about youth and community work, but I think we can take something from that here. So a bit more text and I will have time to go through in detail, but as we see in the text, as humans, we are imperfect, unfinished, incomplete beings within an ever-changing world. Nobody's born made. We are always becoming, and that's something that the existential philosophers are very much about. We are becoming human. We are always learning, developing, being what we are going to be. And in terms of humanization, that's what Freire and Blackburn suggests this is, the process of becoming a full human being. And when a person is dehumanized, made less human, what happens maybe is that their individuality is diminished, their creativity is not seen, and the humanity is taken away, and they're treated as a number or an object. In research, we're sometimes guilty of that, but obviously there's different horses for different courses. Doing large number or big scale research, we have to do that. There's only so much level you can get to. There's also other types of research where we can really humanise the participants through the actual act of research. And that's what I want to address today. Stepping more towards publications, you can see I'm a bit of a bibliophile. I went a bit mad with my book pictures yesterday. Moving more towards literature that's more central to my study, Ashworth, who's a human psychologist, suggests that when we're looking at human beings in this sort of in-depth humanistic level of research where we're trying to humanise participants, we need to see them as more than just an intersection of variables. They are a whole human being with all their past, their loves, their passions, their hopes, their dreams. So this really spoke to me when I was doing early research. And the existential philosophers, the hermeneutic philosophers, one of which is Heidegger, would call this Dasein, that we are holistic human beings, and that in entities ourselves as human beings, that deserves to be researched at that level and to be seen as individual, amazing, rich human beings with their own self-consciousness. So my study, obviously I can't talk about it all, is trying to look at the lived experience of what it's like for worker cooperators. It's very much in worker co-ops this, so by nature they're small and medium enterprises. What it's like working at the nexus between cooperativism and sustainability. So these are worker co-ops at various locations around the UK that are very much, yes, they are cooperatives, they're worker cooperatives, they are economic democracies, as we are familiar with, but they're also very much, and their mission and their values are very much centred around sustainability aims. So what I wanted to do was not just look at this as a big picture item, maybe like economists would look at, or political economists. I wanted to look at it from the view of the people, sort of bottom up. How is it to work in this environment? What is it like? So their experience of cooperative values and principles. I don't think I need to rehearse those, hash those out for you here. What it's like to make decisions in this environment, what their understanding and meaning of values and principles is. And also you can see it in the sort of lilac purple box at the bottom there, by means of the technique and the research methods I'm using, also some quite personal aspects come out of the research, which is interesting for me anyway. So many people in the room, many people in the cooperative sector, some of which today are sort of economists by trade, like Nokovic and all the kind of people that we hear from. And Peter Soderbaum is a political economist looking at aspects of sustainability. And I stumbled across Soderbaum's research here. And he says, if we're trying to find out about sustainability and what it's like in this environment, we need to go beyond the normal types of research. We need to look at how actors interpret sustainable development, how it influences their behaviour and actions, what it's like in the context. Every context is different, so you've got that uniqueness and that subjectivity and that contextual nature, where the actors or the decision makers are acting. And he pointed me in the direction of hermeneutics, narrative theory or analysis. So great. In terms of research process, I sort of had somewhere to go. And oops, beep, where I arrived, I told you 3 screens is a challenge. And where I arrived was a research methodology called interpretive phenomenological analysis. I don't want to get too geeky. You can contact me if you want more on this, but it's basically a bottom-up inductive type analysis that allows for these 3 pillars on the slide. It allows for the phenomenological focus, so looking at the experience of individuals, looking at their meaning making and lived experience. So that is a sort of focus, if you like. It allows for hermeneutic analysis, so it's not just descriptive. I do analysis on the interview data, line by line, and using the processes outlined in the Smith methodology, Smith et al. But where it differs from some techniques, and this is what sort of attracted me, if you like, is the ideographic unit as focus. Ideographic means person, the person as a focus. So the individual participants. So the consequences of this is, yes, you can explore experience. Yes, you can do analysis on it and look for what is going on and go beyond description or beyond boosterism. But what you also do is having a small number of participants, ideographic, small number, it allows for a niche to be really explored. So you're not trying to tackle the whole world, it's looking at a niche area. And for me, it ended up being worker co-ops, and that was the niche. So keeping the focus on the participants, we can keep that sort of human element and humanize the research. So after doing this line-by-line analysis and creating themes from the data, typical of this research approach, I ended up with 5 superordinate big themes, and these sort of represent, if you like, an understanding of what it's like to work at the nexus of sustainability and cooperativism. This is what I'm wrestling with in my write-up, and if you're interested, of course, the full thesis will be published in time. So what's going on here for my participants, and to backtrack a little, there were only 10 participants, most of them interviewed twice to see what was going on for them. What's revealed is the participants in these worker co-ops are somewhat free from the normal dominant social paradigm and the mainstream of society and the economic world, and that gives them choice. They're able to be authentic and act in an authentic way. But they're not alone. They are individuals, yes, as I'll explore in a moment, but they are certainly, as you'd expect with a worker co-op, definitely with a communitarian tribe. So they're in this sort of comfortable family tribe environment, which enables them to put their values into practice. That's co-op and sustainability. And the study goes into how they do that. And linking to the talk before, talking about well-being, it if you like, what I see as an end product here is that there is a state reached, if you like, of eudaimonia, which is some Greek word, which talks about well-being, happiness, welfare. So eudaimonia, well-being and happiness at work. This is not to say these are cause and effect. It's not that kind of study, but this is a sort of narrative one could weave it into. Now, I'm really not going on to the detail here, but just to talk about research process, if I looked at what was typical out there in the mainstream literature on authenticity and authentic leadership in organisations, and I teach this on a leadership module in a business school, we see that authentic leadership has different dimensions. It's about, yes, being genuine, having an understanding of self on the intrapersonal side. On the interpersonal side, yes, it's about gathering people together. It's about expressing strong values. It's about getting buy-in from followers. And on the developmental side, which links nicely to the existential becoming, you're not born with it, you develop it over life. But that's the traditional mainstream. I think we can think that worker co-ops are totally different than this, as we know. They don't have traditional leadership. They don't have top-down. They have their own flavour of how to get buy-in, not from followers, but from fellow worker cooperators with their one member, one vote or representative democracy version of decision making. So I expect to see a little bit different than what's in the mainstream literature there. And then other typical research and findings out there on authentic leadership, again, I won't go into the detail here because I've got to trot on with my own findings, is that yes, authentic leadership, and again, I don't like the word leadership because I deal in worker co-ops, but this is what the mainstream literature refers to. It's about having your own values, having an internal moralised perspective, making decisions based on emotional inputs as well as rational inputs. And at the bottom there, quite related to authenticity itself as a concept, being open and honest in being able to present one's true self to others. So that's what the mainstream literature says. But what I want to think about is what my research says. So does that come through? Is that what happens when I talk to the participants, as you see along the left? These are all pseudonyms, of course. So when I delved into authenticity, one of the 5 big themes of my study, I found all these sub-themes, and the process of hermeneutic analysis helps you arrive at these sub-themes. These are just what I call them, of course. So the first thing to note, I think, is to say all the participants showed all these sub-themes, aspects of authenticity. So if one wanted to be semi-quantitative, there's good coverage, marvellous. I'll just talk through these really quickly and then I'll go into a little bit of detail because I keep talking about individuals, so you want to see what these individuals actually say. I found that rather than having bosses or managers or leaders as master, very much the values of these individuals in worker co-ops served as a sort of master, if you like, drove them. They very much have individualised values. They're not all the same. I can't show you the detail today, but one might be vegan, is first on the list for them. One might be the environment's first, one might be land, one might be people, one might be providing good jobs for the local community. They all have their own values. There's quite a lot of congruence between these values. So they see co-op values fitting nicely with their own values. They see cooperative and sustainable ways of working as quite natural, fitting with their values. The centrality of the values to their work life is often very strong. So working in a values-based environment just means a lot to them. And on the individuality side, they have their own strong identities, what are expressed, as well as being communitarian and within a tribe. And they also suggest that they can be themselves at work. They can say what they want. They can show their values with respect for others. So I keep talking about the individuals and we want to see what they're saying, don't we? Not just thinking about the big picture. So again, this is the ideographic focus of the kind of research I'm doing, is you don't lose sight of the people, what they say. So quotes are heavy and the summarised findings from the previous slide have to emanate back and have to be grounded in what the individual said. And of course, the full study will show this. So there's some really rather interesting things coming out here, and what jumped out to me was lots of existential stuff. So in terms of values, being yourself, being able to be yourself, let's look at some of these. Values being master for Andy at the top. He just said, it's where our values go. I started off trying to talk about decision making in my study, but they found it very hard to talk at that individual personal level about decision making. So when you delve down to the personal level, we got to things like this nugget here, this pearl, this gem. How do you make decisions? At the bottom of the first quote there. Well, it's simple. It's where our values tell us to go. So values as master there. Andy very much sees his personal values being wrapped up in cooperative values. They're all linked. They're all interchangeable. That is just who he is. Chris, rather interesting, rather provocative participant, Chris, suggested that I'm a kind of individual. I'm an individual. I might be in a communitarian environment, but I'm an individual. I don't have to be the normative type of person. You know, he doesn't feel he has to be the same as everybody else. I'm quite sure he isn't a member of the Ku Klux Klan. He's just being provocative there. But the point he's making is, yes, I'm in a group environment and we do have cooperative values and principles, but I'm still an individual, and they like to hold on to that. Max at the bottom is quite an interesting character. I've got a few minutes, I'm okay. Max at the bottom is quite an interesting character because his values are so strong to him that he suggests that he couldn't work in even another local cooperative in this quite bohemian cooperative city in the UK. He couldn't work for even a vegetarian organisation. He had to set up his own vegan business that only does vegan parts of the foods and product supply chain. So his values were so important to him that led his very essence and type of work decision. Beep. And for Helen, she feels comfortable. The co-op model reflects her values. So there's that congruence between self and values. So there's a nice alignment there between the individuals and the co-op values and principles. And they feel that and they articulate it very well. For Bev, she just feels she can be herself. Bev was probably my least confident participant. She's not always sure of herself. She's probably the one who's more becoming herself and finding herself. But when she got through the ordeal, and she describes becoming a member of the worker co-op being an ordeal and a trial, rather interesting in itself, you can relax and get on with yourself. You can be yourself. So this is probably, I say, the most individually unconfident participant I had. And Julie at the bottom, she's a Christian. She can express that at work, but she also has to be respectful of others. So her values and principles of Christianity fit with the co-op values and principles, i.e. you are allowed to be yourself, to carry on the religious theme. It's a broad church. And for her, she can't commit to anything that doesn't link to her values. So not only does it give her some kind of well-being at work, it enables her to actually give her all. And that relates to another theme later on. Moving on. So Scott's interesting. Scott's a very, what I'd say, an enlightened participant. Some of the participants were just so amazing. They're sort of doing half the job for me. Scott, at first, well, it's kind of who I am. It puts into practice of my life and values. So speaking to congruence of co-op values and his, that they can be expressed and lived out in the worker co-op. But if you look at the second one, second quote, won't go on too much about it because I'm running out of time, but it's very much suggesting that we can't separate ourselves and our values and beliefs from the world of work. We are value and meaning-seeking human beings, so we will look for that. So that was rather interesting from a sort of an enlightened participant. And Danny, to end, you asked me, what do you feel like? Can you be yourself? Yeah, well, that's pretty much the basis of the co-op, I think, allowing members to be people as well as workers. So that's screaming out about, yes, individuality within a cooperative and humanising the workers. She has a strong feeling, a really strong feeling, that this is what she needs to be doing. And it's positive, so it gives her that positive motivation. Appeals to her core values very strongly. And again, congruence of values. So I wish I had more time. This is one of the downsides of this kind of research. There's so much depth to get into and you can't. So let's move on. So I did all that data, found all these interesting findings, and then you're like, right, what do I do with that? So had I just stayed with the mainstream authentic literature that I discovered, I wouldn't have found this. So I found authenticity, and then I found existentialism and Sartrean, and had this little breakthrough moment, if you like, where I thought maybe the authenticity comes from the freedom of the worker co-ops, and the freedom breeds this authenticity. That's sort of in the bigger project. And quite a mainstream researcher here, leadership researcher, Lola, so he's a big name in leadership, mainstream research, is suggesting that we need to start taking more of a Sartrean and existential perspective on authenticity, to really delve into it, into the intersubjective, and see what's going on for individuals. I think I've got a couple of minutes, not quite. Oh. So if I pull that through to a conclusion, if I work in my findings, my data, it is empirical data, connecting that with literature that you only find after you've dived around in the in-depth data. I wouldn't have found it in a normal literature review, maybe. I can come to these kind of conclusions. Acting true to self is what Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre, calls a core of authenticity. And you need some freedom to be able to make those choices and act in what he calls good faith. follow your values through, run a good business, do good in society, and the kind of things that the worker co-ops are doing. But it's not selfish. There's sometimes a critique of existential philosophy to say it's selfish, it's all about you, it's not communitarian. But if you act in good faith for yourself, the existentialists argue that you're also acting in good faith for all of humankind. You know, what's good for you, you are thinking of others, it's not necessarily selfish. And that's, if you like, when you delve into existentialism, that can be revealed. So if you like, I might suggest that one of the conclusions will be co-ops are a space, worker co-ops are a space and a place for individuals to be their authentic self, to be themselves, to have their own voice, to have individual views, but within a respectful tribe and collective. Now, I am finishing soon, don't worry. To go back to research methods, I suggested that I was trying to cover that as well. Qualitative research analogy is often sometimes used, diving for pearls, you're looking for gems. Using this research, type of research I do, it's exploratory, it's not hypodeductive, it's very much inductive and exploratory. You can find the pearls that you may have thought you were looking for. Yeah. You can also find some other obvious treasures that you thought you might find. Bingo. You can also find some unexpected treasures that need a bit more revealing, unearthing, and that's where I came across this existential thread. And what we're also not doing is presenting the pearls as a collective as inanimate, disembodied or dehumanized research findings. We're very much connecting them to the people themselves. You have to excuse my silly cartoons now. Because unlike in previous research where I wasn't actually an ecologist doing natural science, I might have actually studied the oysters on the seabed. My oysters, my participants, can speak as human beings can. So we have the dialogue and we have that dialogical spoken angle to see in the interview, and then my interpretive dialogue with the data. Excuse my cartoon, I'm delirious, I've been ill. So when we do this, it shows that the human beings are more than research subjects. They have their own feelings, history, interpretations, values, beliefs, hopes, dreams, views, meaning making. And this study maybe taps into some of what is often described in the cooperative research lexicon as that elusive and hard to define thing, the co-op difference. Now, I can't speak to the co-op difference at the larger scale or the economic scale, but in terms of for the workers, I think it's illuminating some of that. To go back to my original statement, it's almost like they're individual oysters. Oh, I mean individual worker co-ops. Sorry, my terrible humour, apologies. So sorry, one final thing. And I'm probably running over time and failed on one of my objectives. What I want to do is take it beyond the individual, and I want to make sure that I'm carrying forward in a cooperative way and actually working with the individuals, not just interpreting what they say. Right, any questions, comments, ideas?
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Janette. That was absolutely fantastic. Could you unshare your screen so we can see everyone?
I could try.
That was absolutely superb, and I absolutely cannot wait until you finish that piece of work and that we can all enjoy reading it, because I think I've seen you present various iterations of that over some time, and it's coming together, has come together so beautifully. So it's very rich and very important piece of work. Thank you very much. So can I open the floor, or not open the floor literally, but open to the floor, any questions you may have about Janette's research? Thank you. Please raise your hand.
There's one in the chat from Grant.
Oh, right. Thank you. Could you read it, Ian? That would be good. I can't see it.
Yeah, so Grant's raised two questions. The first one, he says, can this study be done for consumer co-op members? And the second question is, I think, are worker co-op members bound by the contracts of employment, i.e. master-servant relationship?
Yeah, that's interesting. I very much had to find a niche, Grant, because that's part of this research area. There was a similar interpretive study done a few years ago by, I can't pronounce it, but Oskowski, an Australian person who did interpretive work on co-ops, but she's trying to look across the piece, one of her colleagues, and I think when you do that, you get these sort of big themes and you get the convergent rather than the divergent in individuality. So I've not thought about consumer co-ops, but I don't see why, in a way. It's getting to the individual level. Again, you know, you can only do small numbers, so there's limits there. Master-servant relationship, yeah, that's an existential theme that's going to come out, I think. I think it started with Hegel. I've been into in a world of existential novels and audible books over the last year. So yeah, it speaks to that, the master-servant relationship. So that will come out. Thank you. That is there. So you know, they're not in a normal master-servant relationship in the world of work. But equally, they're not, you know, sort of selfish individuals that are individualized, but in a communitarian respective environment. So I think there's quite a lot of connections with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janette. Just before I hand over to Nick, there's a lot of questions and a lot of people requesting slides because they want to follow up the literature. So it'd be great if you could make those available to colleagues on the call, because I think they want to read some of the things that you've been suggesting.
I think they're going to share the recording and slides. I think Laurie's going to...
Yeah, so they're going to go onto the website within the next few days, and we'll email people with the website link once they're all up.
Thank you. Thanks very much indeed, Janette. Nick.
Yeah, this is fantastic. It's a very interesting, almost tangential view of these relationships, which is not an approach, I think, that many people in this sphere have taken in the recent past. My own thoughts. When I was a kid, which is a bloody long time ago now, sadly, I read all John Paul Sartre's novels because I thought they were really. I thought Paris, you know, the Dumagar and all the rest of it was very sexy, and I thought Simone Beauvoir was to die for, you know. So I was really taken with this. But about a year ago, I came across a review of a Sartre, Being and Nothingness, had been republished.
Yeah,
marks some anniversary. And I thought I'm probably old enough now to be able to read it, you know what I mean? Because to say it's daunting is like the underestimate of the universe, isn't it? It's a great book to keep the door open in the summer, you know, like a house brick type of thing. But to actually read the bloody thing is really daunting, really challenging. But actually, if you get past the pretentious writing, some of the ideas are not that hard to understand, are they? But what I was struggling with is Sartre calls himself a Marxist, but he never really looks at the concept of alienation. And I wondered whether you'd also sort of avoided it. Is there a sense in the worker co-op where, because the worker is the owner and the manager, and the product belongs to the worker, not to some third-party owner, that they're living in for want of a more sophisticated question, an unalienated workspace? You know, they're not having their surplus value extracted by some evil capitalist. They're extracting it from themselves for themselves.
Absolutely, and that'll come out in the bigger study. Yeah, this with a broad exploratory study. Unfortunately, it means there's loads of threads. And I like it. I didn't want to find. I didn't go in finding Sartre. I wasn't diving for Sartre in that sea and swimming around expecting it. And I wasn't even that aware of existential philosophy. But the data just screamed it out to me, and I found it in a Radio 4 programme. You know, one of those In Our Time, Melvin Bragg. I found BBC Sounds and listened to it and I was like, oh God, this has got something, it makes some sense. So then I went into the existential literature. So I didn't start off finding that. Again, I've not done the research where you start off with an idea and you're trying to look for it. And yeah, the Marxist idea is interesting. I will cover it in a thesis. I'm not a Marxist, and there's a lot of stuff about him. When you mention Sartre, it's quite interesting because the religious people will hate you because he was attacked by the Catholics and the religious people. The real Marxists would hate you because he was attacked by them. So I try and look for multiple philosophers. I don't know, sort of buying into anybody. Sartre was an idiot, horrible person. Heidegger was evil. There's all these, you know, bad sides to them, absolutely. So more buying into their ideas, which is I'm sorry, dehumanising buying into their ideas rather than their whole philosophy. So it's really the philosophies in those individual participants, and it brings out some of that, absolutely. And I will cover that in the thesis. Thank you, Nick. Alienation will come in. It's not my particular area, so I will take your lead on that. But yes, yeah. I've thought of that. Thank you. Yeah,
sadly, it's screaming out. I'm afraid, Janette. Yeah. You can't avoid it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Really great answer and great question. We've got Hazel next, please, and then John, and then I think we need to wrap up. But Hazel, hello there. Hello, Hazel.
Hi, Janette. That was and Cilla. That was a really fascinating presentation. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. That one of which is a sort of kind of general question, and it's a horrible question that people ask about research. Is I just wondered what surprised you in your results. If I would like to know about your surprises, actually. And the other thing, which is a more specific question, is did you get any sense of how people, as both as individuals and as collectives, addressed conflict?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, some of this obviously is in the bigger study. That's one of my downsides of previous presentations. I've tried to do the whole piece, so tried to focus on one here. Had a lot of surprises. So again, it's that sort of swimming around. You find some things you didn't necessarily expect. So I was expecting to find them to have real personal conflict and, you know, racking their bodies off themselves about how to be sustainable in an organisation and that you can't do everything. And actually, I found them quite at ease with themselves and what they were doing. I went to talk about conference on meaning making, and this thing about sort of eco-anxiety. And I think they've not got a lot of eco-anxiety about acting sustainably. And that's one of the puzzles. Why aren't they just, you know, upset and distraught that they can't do everything that they're setting out to do? And maybe that's because they're taking more in other themes, in other parts of the project, they're taking practical action and being together. I think being together in that tribe takes away some of that angst and eco-anxiety. And I found surprises. I thought there'd be that. I thought there'd be a lot of, I can't be myself, I have to act a certain way. You know, the echo chamber or the diminishing of individuality. But I was pleased to see that they could be very much themselves, respectful to other people within the organisation, but never held back from expressing their own opinions. In terms of conflict within the organisation, in a way it wasn't the focus of the study. They're not the kind of questions I asked, but I found a lot of just at ease with themselves about making decisions. And yeah, sometimes you lose, you don't get the way you want, but we accept it's democracy. And in the theme on tribe, I'm getting into almost a functional family. It's like a functional family or a functional marriage. You know, it's not perfect. Some of them say it's not Nirvana, it's not perfect. Yeah, I don't get my own way all the time, but we're together, we're doing our best, we're respectful of each other whilst having a voice. So I see it as almost like a functional family where you have those family debates around the kitchen table. Now, you listen to everybody, but you don't all necessarily get your way. So actually, not a lot of conflict came out, and that was a surprise. That was a real surprise. So that hence this more of, and again, to put my cards on the table, I've got to be reflective. I'm not Marxist. I'm a centrist, middle-end, green, liberal, left. I'm certainly not a Marxist or a Cobbin, you know, but that's my politics. And I found they are all different. So again, I expected it to be a lot about politics. The research people like Soderbaum, I was expecting them to be very much about politics. Marxist, it is there, but they don't use those words a lot overtly. And I think we've got all sorts of political parties going off here. So that was a surprise as well. That was a real surprise.
Thank you, Janette. I think we've just got time for one question. I mean, my pushback would be, well, not a pushback, actually. I'm just now really desperate to see the demographics and, you know, who and the sort of people, the different stages people might have been at their in their life course,
Yeah.
and also their sort of frankly economic social backgrounds as well, because that might impact on that comfort and ease. But just by way of a contrast to a paper we had yesterday, which I don't know if you were able to participate in, was with Lisa Bukta, who was talking about housing co-ops, Janette, and she actually identified the enormous amount of tension within the housing co-op. So it's quite an interesting contrast. But thank you very much. So if I can pass over to John for our final question.
Yeah, Cilla, just before we do, just to remind people, I've put the links to the breakout groups in the chat. So if anybody does want to continue their conversations in the break before the 12:15 session, those rooms are there. So just agree which room you're going to go into and go into it.
Yeah, thank you. And there's some fantastic, rich, links and conversation in the chat. So we'll save that and make sure that's available if that's useful. John, final question. Thank you. We're coming up to time, so we need to be quite brief.
So I put my comments in the chat section. I particularly enjoyed the use of the word holosophy or holistic in the presentation. I liked the phrase internalized moral perspective, which I shall go and Google, and thank Janette for that. Your comment just now about the conflictual nature of life in housing co-ops as contrasted with Janette's congenial workplaces is something for us to all think about. And I've offered as concisely as I can what I think is the true cooperative difference, and that is that in a true cooperative, a true cooperator asks the question, what can I or we give, rather than the capitalist Marxist approach, which is what can I get, what can we get. So it's an inversion of approach. I'm not going to add a question to this because time is pressing, but I certainly thank Janette and the other presenters this morning for all of their various contributions.
Thank you so much, John. That's really helpful. And I think it's been a magnificent session. And every one of the contributions have been provocative and in a sense, cutting through a number of different, there's been similar themes, but quite sharp and different themes as well, but fundamentally looking at the relationship between people and their co-ops in all those different contexts. So can I thank every one of the speakers for making a magnificent contribution. Just as a reminder that there are the chat rooms that are spinning off from this. There is another discussion, I understand, at 12:15, and there is now a break until people reconvene, should you not be going to either of those this afternoon. So can I thank everyone and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, hi everyone.